Thank you so much, Sylvia. Just before going to Kaan, I just want to comment on developed countries. The artificial intelligence is very good, promising for the developing countries. It will be a very good solution for the upcoming cervical cancer elimination program. But we also have big problems in colposcopy in the developed countries in Europe. ESGO and EFC is trying to push their sources to do something better in these developed countries. Mainly, the sensitivity of colposcopy is decreasing day by day. Almost some recent reports give a 30% sensitivity, which is very low. Of course, this is due to ongoing vaccination and starting HPV DNA screening. Uh, this type of artificial intelligence, however, is not currently under routine use in many European gynecologies and colposcopies. We are still using traditional colposcopies. Uh, Usually, extra biopsies or qualified trainings were told to be a solution to increase personal sensitivity of the colposcopies in different centers. However, they are not optimal. But similar to artificial intelligences, we are now facing some sorts of new generation colposcopies, and we didn't have time to discuss this more, but we are using there are some devices that's already, using some energies and trying to make the colposcopy some bit more objective. Some of them is using electrical energy, some of them are using photo energy, but increasing the sensitivity of the colposcopies around 80%. I want to thank to ESGO for the support to Mark Arbin. Maybe Mark will also comment on that. But currently, we need another guidance in the developed countries, how to select among these colposcopies. And we will try to implement a Valcop project protocol similar to Valjant. This is just what I want to show you. Different colposcopy devices, different energies are being used, but the idea is similar to make it more objective and to detect extra cases of high-grade lesions among these different devices. So there will be three competition in the developed countries. One is training in colposcopy by EFC-ESGO. One is increasing additional biopsy numbers in cases even with normal appearing cervix. And the third will be new generation colposcopies, such as those ones that I'm just sharing with you. But we need to see some data, some meta-analyses, some Valcop protocols. And hereby I want to thank to Mark Arbin for our new project. So that's what I want to share with you at the end of your presentation, and happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you so much, Murat, for making a very complex topic very simple for everyone to understand. So now the floor is open to questions. I can see there is already a question from Mauricio. Mauricio, would you like to ask your question directly?
Sure. So Mario, I know that in the past, in other meetings, there were limitations due to the scale of manufacturing for certain HPV products. Now that that has been expanded, does that mean that the prices will potentially go down, or will they just be always based on, demand? I mean, obviously there's always that component, but for example, there are places where HPV testing is still just so expensive, but will this new expansion that you talked about will help in reducing the costs?
I will start with what you have on your picture. Never give up. I never give up. What there are two different stories. So one story is a story of existing products. So the prices I received in my laboratory for the COVID, and I compare this price for the COVID RNA molecular test in comparison with what I use for the years for HIV, hepatitis B, C, whatever. It was substantially cheaper. So I mean, it's in all companies I obtain substantially cheaper price for the SARS-CoV PCR-based test in comparison with all other tests I ever used before. So it's partially working on this demand scale. Then there were a few countries in Europe using European Commission tenders, where the European Commission is tendering for the many countries at the same time. And for example, at least my country, Slovenia, received very good prices for many SARS-CoV products, from antigen test to the lump-based test, through the big tender issued by European Commission. But the second story, which I would like that we focus, is that I believe that the new technologies which will now arise because of the COVID will use a testing system which will be based on the paper or on the simplest cartridges, where the reagents will be produced by technology similar to the production of the computer chips, where I believe that for any microorganisms, including COVID and HPV, we can reach a price of the €1. So this will be completely new products. And I'm hoping for the product which will be instrument free, that the only instrument you will need, if you can call this instrument, will be mobile phone, which will actually have all capabilities to run such tests. So this I hope I answered to your question. So there is already now trend for that the demand can produce substantially lower price. Can you imagine that we have a tender for 1 billion tests? I mean, can you imagine such tender? You know what kind of price you can achieve with such tender? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have, please go ahead, Mark. You have a question.
Thank you, Mario, for this very pertinent answer. I maybe just communicate what happened in the Netherlands. They have worked via a tender procedure. They have invited companies to the request to offer prices and conditions. And due to that, the price has decreased immensely. The price is now 4 to 5 times cheaper than what was available on the market. So this is something which is important for price setting, public tenders, and also the communication about this. Now these tenders in Europe, they are often not public. The publication of the tender is public, but the conclusion, what was the price that the company obtains, the company with the best offer, does not belong to the public domain. So having this to the public domain could also contribute to lower prices. However, another question for Sylvia and Kanan. Sylvia, you did already answer my question in the chat, but nevertheless, I want to repeat it. If we look at your ROC curves, the optical device had a better sensitivity specificity profile than HPV. What is still, what do you propose? Now you answer that it is destined to become a triage test, but would you think that it has the potentiality of becoming a screening test, and that randomized trials should be set up with longitudinal outcomes, comparing HPV screening versus, in another arm, optical device interpretation?
Yes, thank you for this question, and Michael Chang as well has asked about the same issue. Certainly, we think we can work in both approaches, but we know that HPV provides a lot of information and provides, as long as Canon as well responded, an important security of a negative test in the long run. We don't know whether AI will be giving this long security window. In any case, we think that if we aim to screen 70% of the world population in many countries where they have never had any screening test, if we have to embark on that, we have to try to avoid colposcope examinations, try to use HPV, and then assist for those that they are positive, assist with ABE. That could be our first approach. Having said that, in the Zambia, under the direction of Dr. Grossbeck-Parham, they are running this, and they will be running this approach based on the algorithm that will be generated within our consortium as a primary screening test. However, we do believe that our way forward is to include HPV testing. We think that we will improve the quality, particularly in women that will only have one or twice tests in their lifetime.
Thanks, Sylvia. Maribel has a question for Jack. Maribel, would you like to ask the question yourself?
Certainly. So, Jack, one of the things that, as you know, I mean, over the years that we've been working on this field, one of the major challenges to screen women is, for instance, in regions like the Amazon. So there, where you have to go in a boat to actually find women, and you have to find very few numbers of women from when you go from village to village, the use of urine testing would be ideal, because also there are certain perceptions or cultural or religious beliefs that do not allow women to use other type of sampling. If urine testing is at the stage that it could be used for this sort of efforts, and do you see any possibility of having at some point in the near future a point of care test that could be based on urine sampling?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a very interesting question, and certainly in our study, the women really preferred a urine sample, and from other studies, it looks like, particularly in the developing world or in Asia, where tampons and those things are not so routinely used, that women very much prefer urine. So I think it is certainly a sample that works well. I mean, that's well received. In our experience, we get just the same good results as with a self-sampled vaginal device. So I'm quite excited about that, actually. I do think that the prospect now exists for actually, taking a self-sample with HPV, which is clearly the way forward, either a urine sample or a vaginal sample, but urine seems to work just as well. And then the one problem, of course, we've had with HPV is that it's very sensitive, but it's not so specific. And our initial results, which aren't yet published, is that if you follow up HPV positivity with a methylation assay, the S5 that Attila Lorenz developed, you actually don't lose hardly any sensitivity, but the specificity really comes up. So we're now talking about a test that's really, I think the ROC curves would probably be above Sylvia's, but I would interested in Sylvia's view about whether or not it's early days, a self-sample that had methylation in it might be preferred to a visual, an image test, particularly if it's based on a urine.
Sylvia, would you like to address? Yeah.
Thank you. We are now developing a protocol in women living with HIV, where, as you know, they have high levels of HPV, whether we will have many lesions, and still we are not sure that even the very best image taken with a fantastic cell phone is gonna work. And we are trying to identify approaches that can help us triage women. And we really would like to explore methylation using self-sampling. We would like to use dual staining using self-sampling, and trying to see whether we could generate an approach that could be as a low-cost approach for these regions in which we have limited capability of testing.
Thank you. Svetlana Rogovskaya has two questions, one for Sylvia and one for Mario. Svetlana, please go ahead.
All speakers, do you hear me? It's okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for perfect presentations. I have just a short question to Sylvia about the artificial intelligence. I'm convinced that it is our future. And in our country, we have a lot of data about the TrueScreen. And recently in China, they received promising results. What do you think about TrueScreen device? And to Mario, a question. Mario, thank you very much for presentation and for sharing your slide with me. It's helped me a lot. Mario, what kind of HPV tests do you use in Slovenia for screening program, validated and included in 2 protocols? Because you mentioned that there are only 3 tests pre-qualified by WHO, but it is expensive test. It even expensive for us in Russia, and we use the in-house test a lot. They are not validated, and I don't sure that it's good that recently HPV test was included in our screening protocols by Ministry of Health. The question is, how many tests are included in your Slovenian protocol right now? Thank you.
Sylvia, please.
Sylvia, do you want first or?
You can go first.
Okay, I can go first. So in Slovenia, we are still have a cervical-based cytology screening. So we use HPV test only for as triage test in case of borderline cytology, as follow-up after the test, as test of cure. And we use in our national program still hybrid capture. But as you know, in addition to the 3 WHO pre-qualified tests, Mark Arbin and group around me and Mark Arbin, we are updating regularly the tests which are clinically validated, considered as clinically validated. So around 12 tests currently which are considered as clinically validated, and you can use each of them actually equally. It's your decision should be based on the price, on the standard of automation, on all other criteria. But if the test it's clinically validated by international standards, doesn't matter which test you are using.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Svetlana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sylvia, please.
Yeah, so just to say, try to respond your question, is there are several groups that we know that they are trying to develop these AI approaches. There are groups like DICES that works mainly on colposcopes that will be for high-income countries, at least for the moment. That they are different approaches, they are not static images, they are video capture, and that they are, and we work with them as well, developing an AI approach. There is the Duke University with whom we have collaborated with their pocket colposcope training approach, and there are many groups working, and the Chinese have been very proactive in publishing results. What is very important, and this was my objective in that presentation, is that we understand that we need as providers to understand the process on how an AI approach has been validated, and that we cannot just use the first thing that comes. It has to prove, as we would be doing validating an HPV test. So we have to follow some standards, and we are preparing with Canan and Mark a paper trying to lay out all these criteria that we need to bring forward in order that, to be sure that when there is someone selling us a product, that we understand how, what is the quality, how we can approve it and accept it in our as a clinical test.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe Sylvia, a few additions. Also, these artificial intelligence products should be updating continuously. I mean, when you produce the product, the number of the images that you are using should increase by time, because the people should upload to the cloud and more. But here is the quality of the figures are very important during the start point. But once again, I want to underline the fact that currently these are not at the primary screening point, but these are adjunct products for diagnostics issues. I believe the screening should still continue with HPV.
Thank you very much, Murat. We have to close the session. We are already a few minutes out of time. Thank you very much for your excellent presentations. Thank your participants to follow the sessions and for your pertinent questions. We had 3 topics discussed today. The first covered by Mario, and we learned from Mario that we have today excellent tests. There was a major impact of COVID on HPV testing, but COVID has also generated new ideas, and there might be from the CRISPR and the LAMP technology, new tests that we can translate from COVID testing towards HPV testing, which could be cheap, economically affordable, rapid, user-friendly, and applicable in a point-of-care testing. And this will be needed to have more cheap tests for developing countries that are robust, and our Valgent works could contribute in evaluating this future generation of tests. HPV has a major advantage beyond the fact that it is more effective than cytology. It can be done on self-samples. From Jack, we have learned that there are different devices, and they are not all equal. This was a conclusion from a previous meta-analysis, but I was very prudent in that conclusion. We do not evidence that there are differences, but we cannot exclude differences. So Jack has shown us that indeed there are differences. Now, combining the discussion on price setting, we should also obtain cheap self-devices. If we have a test for €1, yeah, the self-device should be only a fraction of it. And we need good protocols to evaluate devices. We do not have to do diagnostic accuracy test protocols for comparison tests, but we can also compare just positivity rates. Women take 2 self-specimens and we can compare. And then we can extend a test that is validated for one device toward a test that is applied on another device. And a third topic was artificial intelligence applied on visual methods, visual interpretation of the cervix, where for the immediate future, we should see it as a triage test, which could be done in combination with a point of care immediately after testing or within a short while for testing. And I'm very happy that there is now a new evolution in this, And I appreciate very much your work, Sylvia, Kanan, on this. But there are also, at the other side of colposcopy as an alternative for colposcopy, there are also new devices that can improve the current diagnostic accuracy, the performance of colposcopy in developed countries, in Europe, in North America, Australia. So we should also look for that. I do not know, Partha, if you want to add to this.
Not much, Mark. I think Dr. Margaret Stanley has written the final words here. Yes, technology will be there, but then we still need human professionals to be trained, to be deployed in a position so that more and more women have access to care, which starts from screening to treatment and management of the lesions. So that's with that final words, I think it's time to wrap up the session. Thank you all. Thank all of you for the excellent presentations and very interactive session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And now,
Thank you all, and especially the chairs and the speakers, but also all the participants to make such an interactive session. So we run 5 minutes over the scheduled time, but I do propose that we take 15 minutes break. Then you can come back to this main room, and there will be a button where you can select yourself which breakout session you would join. So as I mentioned earlier, there will be one on cervical cancer screening that will be chaired by Mario, and there will be one on HPV vaccination that will be shared by Eduardo. And the breakout session will take then 40 minutes instead of 45 minutes. So see you all after the short break. Thank you.